All right, so I'm recording now. All right, so hi everyone, welcome. So welcome to Palo Alto University's October open house. This session for the next hour is going to be about our master's in psychology and our PhD program. And I'm also joined today with two current students, Sasha and Sadie. Um, and Sasha, if you wanted to sort of make your introduction of what program you're in, what year, and if you're pursuing a concentration within the program.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, hopefully my internet's okay. I'm in my second year an MS program, transferring into the PhD program. And my concentration basically is just the general concentration, but there's so much openness at PAU. You can really try out a lot of different tracks before you make your decision.
Right, thank you, Sasha. And Sadie, if you wanted to introduce yourself and what year and what program you're in, if you're doing an emphasis.
Hi everyone, my name is Sadie. I'm a fourth year student in the PhD program, doing a general emphasis, and similar to Sasha, I also transferred from the MS program.
Right, thank you, Sadie. And then we're also joined by Dr. Arnaud, which Dr. Arnaud will make her introductions in a few minutes. And so, hi everyone, my name is Robin. I'm a senior admissions counselor here at PAU. And primarily you'll be connecting with me if you have any admissions questions or any questions about the program, or I could connect you with any resources. I primarily work with both our doctoral programs as well as our master's in psychology program. So today for this session, we are going to be going over a PowerPoint that has information about the program, also some admissions requirements information, and then we'll follow it with some questions at the end. However, if you do have any questions during these slides, please feel free to write them in the chat. Me and also the current students will try to answer those. And anything we can't get to, we'll get to at the end. However, I will also have my email at the end of the slide, just in case we don't have enough time to get to your question. You could always reach out to me and I'll try to connect with you. And so, yeah, I'll let Dr. Arnaud take it away from here.
Thank you, Robin. Let's see if this works to share my screen. Okay, are you all seeing the slides?
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, let me see if I can get to the next slide. As Robin said, my name is Geneviève Arnaud. I'm shown there in the second from the left, back when I had shorter hair. And I'm the director of clinical training, but essentially the director of the PhD program. And as you can see, I have both a PsyD and a PhD. And I say that not at all to say, isn't it great? I have two doctorates. Actually, it was probably a pretty poor academic plan. I wouldn't recommend it. But what it does mean is that I understand both the PsyD and the PhD training model. And that's been helpful to me in directing the program. I also oversee the internship training. Any PhD or PsyD student in the country has to complete some clinical training here. It's called practicum, while they're also taking classes and doing research. And then the final task is to do a full capstone year of clinical training for 2,000 hours, like it's like a full-time job called internship. And I assist students in applying and making their way through the internship. I'm assisted in running the program by three other faculty. Sita Patel, as you can see at the left, is one of our directors of academic and research training. She's a tenured faculty member who primarily assists by overseeing the research lab match. Dr. Haybarth, who's the third from the left, is also an associate director. She oversees the oral clinical competency exam. We all run the program together, but those are the tasks that she's primarily responsible for. And then John Leadek is an assistant director of clinical training, and he oversees the practicum training that students do while they're resident in the program. Just a little bit about PAU. It was founded in 1975. It's a very unique university in the country in that it focuses only on mental health. So we have about 1,200 students across the two departments, the psychology and the counseling departments. There are 2 bachelor's completion programs, 2 master's programs, an MA in counseling and the MS that you've already heard about from Sasha and Sadie, and you'll hear lots more about. And 2 doctoral programs, the PhD and the PsyD. It's a nonprofit school. It's accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, also called WASC. The PhD program and the PsyD program are also accredited by the American Psychological Association for the doctoral programs. And that's an important distinction. I'm sure you're looking at other programs now, and whether you come to this program or not, it's very important that you do attend a program that has some form of accreditation, because that's going to assist with licensure and your career. The Master's in Counseling program is accredited by a program called CACREP. And PAU in general offers both residential and distance learning programs, but they're very specific to the actual program that you're in. So for example, we don't offer a residential and a distance learning PhD. The PhD program is residential, which kind of sounds like you come here and live in a dorm, but all it really means is you're here on campus taking classes in person. The MS program is a fully distance learning program in contrast. The counseling program actually has both. They have a hybrid distance and residential program, and then a distance only program. We have a relatively large international student population, and we have students from across the country. So for example, in our most recent incoming cohort in the PhD program, we have students who are coming from 5 countries, and we have students from 14 states across the country. PAU is also unique in that we have a lot of innovations in technology, and I think Robin's going to be telling you about this piece.
Yes. So sort of what PAU does really well is, like Dr. Arnaud said, the intersections of technology and the mental health space. And here we have some faculty members, as well as our provost, Dr. Erica Cameron, that have research interests in technology. And then we also have sort of some important pieces within PAU and also the community and the Bay Area. And one of those is our eClinic, which is an online mental health clinical hosted by the MA program, as well as we have a Foundations of Digital Mental Health certificate, and that is through Concept, which I'll get into later in the slides. And then we're also located in the heart of Silicon Valley. So there is a lot of opportunities in the tech space, especially here in this area. And we also have a YouTube video, and it sort of talks about what we do in that space. It's called Superstar Psychologists in Technology. So that's something you could definitely check out if you're interested. And then something I'll also get into later is a concentration we have within the MS program, which is our technology and mental health concentration. So yeah, Dr. Arnaud, you could continue with the slides. Thank you.
Will do. Thanks, Robin. The university has 2 locations. They're not particularly far from each other. The main campus is called the Alan Calvin campus. It's in Palo Alto, and it's a lovely but tiny campus with just 3 small buildings. It's right at the edge of a lovely preserve, the Arastradero Preserve. So as you're driving there or looking out, it's quite beautiful. That's where most of the administrative offices are. We also have the Gronowski Center, which is located, actually that should say, no, I guess it is Mountain View. It's in a building that houses some other agencies and I think some clinics. And we just moved in there last year. It's lovely. It's got some classrooms, and it also has our clinic. In terms of choosing the right program, this is something that I really encourage students and applicants to take time doing. It really depends on what your goals are. And so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Students who are interested in mental health may be interested in doing therapy, conducting research, teaching, maybe doing psychological assessment or testing. Some students come in wanting to be neuropsychologists. For example, I'm a forensic psychologist, so if I were doing a forensic evaluation, I'd be doing a lot of forensic testing. And then other students are interested in case management and really seeing somebody through all the different phases of treatment. If you're interested in research or academics, you really need a doctorate. A master's degree is probably better for somebody who's interested in conducting therapy and only therapy. And that's not to say there aren't a number of doctoral level psychologists who primarily do therapy, but depending on what you want to do, you may actually be priced out of the job market by having a doctorate if what you want to do is be somebody who provides therapy, say at a community mental health center, because those are primarily mental health clinicians. And choosing to get a doctorate instead of a master's degree when what you primarily want to do is something that requires only a master's degree is a really big undertaking, because a doctorate is expensive in terms of time, it's expensive in terms of money, tuition. You're looking at probably a minimum of 5 years before you get your doctorate, and then another year before you get licensed. Whereas if you're in a 2-year master's program, you can be through more quickly. So that's an important consideration. If you're interested in case management or social services, that's probably a better fit for social work. We are going to be having a social work program, but we don't have one yet. Counseling is more targeted toward working with individuals and families rather than social work. As I said before, if you are at a doctoral level, you definitely want to have APA accreditation. And then you may also be thinking, do I want a PsyD or do I want a PhD? I think the distinctions between a PsyD program and a PhD program at some level are more academic than actually true in reality. I had to do a doctoral dissertation and a master's thesis in my PsyD program. But in general, PsyD programs tend to be more clinically focused, and PhD programs tend to be more research focused. If you're somebody who knows that they want to be an academic and they want to teach and do research, then a PhD is probably something that's going to get you farther along that path. I think this is back to you, Robin.
All right, thank you. So yes, I wanted to go over our Master's in Psychology program, sort of about the concentrations and sort of the tracks you could do within the program. So here we have specifically our PhD prep track, and that one is ideally for students that maybe haven't been in school in a long time, or maybe still want to make sure that they do want to pursue a PhD program, or even just want to sort of slowly ramp up their studies. And this is within the program. And the PhD prep track is someone ideally who wants to pursue either our PhD program or potentially another PhD program that they're interested in. And it's typically around about 2 years, where you're doing 7 quarters plus a summer transition courses. And for that one, I just want to make a note that is not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that you will be admitted into the PhD program. There are a lot of other requirements that you have to meet, like doing a comprehensive exam, as well as, you know, interviewing, and then also being conditionally admitted, and then also finishing out your classes with, you know, a certain grade. And then also here next to them, we have 2 other concentrations within the program, which is forensic psychology and the tech and mental health concentration. And those are a little bit less time, 6 quarters. And with those, there's a variety of jobs that you can do within the field, which is doing research, being in teaching, education, media, healthcare, forensics. There's a lot of things that you could do within doing the MS program, which I'll get into more in detail with these concentrations later. All right, and then just like we are today in this room, how we're interacting with one another and you're hearing us, that is sort of how the MS program is conducted. So all the courses are synchronous, so you will have an opportunity to, you know, ask the faculty member questions and sort of connect with your students within the class. And typically you will be meeting for at least 90 minutes or even longer for classes. And one thing to keep in mind is the courses are Pacific Standard Time. So they are between 5 and 8 p.m. So if you are an international student or reside in a different state, it might be a lot later for you. So that is something to keep in mind. And typically students are taking about 2 to 3 classes per quarter. And when it comes to taking classes, sort of the rule of thumb is 1 unit equals 3 hours of time commitment in the class and also outside. So if you are working full-time or even part-time or have other prior commitments, just know that there is, on top of joining the classes every week, you also have to make time to study and do your homework and do assignments. So that is something to keep in mind. And also for our program, it is a cohort model. So the students that you start the program with, typically, you'll be taking classes with them until they sort of break away into their electives. And then that's when students sort of do their own path. But that's typically sort of an overview about the completely online format of the MS program. All right, and then here is sort of a map of the MS program and what to expect. So typically, no matter what concentration you're pursuing, the first year students are taking all the same courses. And we say that you have about a year to decide if you do want to pursue one of the concentrations we have within the program. And for example, for the PhD prep program, when you decide during that first year, that's during the summer. Typically, that's when you'll do your comprehensive exam. And then you'll also have an interview. And that's when, you'll sort of transition. If you are admitted, you'll be conditionally admitted during your second year. And that's when you'll be finishing off your courses. And then you'll also attend a 1-week intensive. And that's the only time you'll actually have to come to campus at Palo Alto University to be in person for the program. And then with that summer, you'll be taking summer transition courses. And if you meet all the requirements, you pass all your classes, then you'll enter into the second year of the PhD program. And then here are other concentrations, the tech and mental health. Typically, we do recommend students to start those courses in the spring of year 1 because you have a lot more electives, which is 4. And you'll be doing that throughout the spring year 1 and then the second year. And then forensic psychology, you'll be taking 2 forensic electives. So those you can just do during the second year. All right, and then here is our tech and mental health concentration. And for students, this it will basically be talking about which digital tools will definitely be helpful to you. These are all the courses you're going to be taking within the concentration. And also some information is also the tools you'll be creating as well and how that will be useful within the program. So you'll be taking technology and mental health for children and adolescents, evidence-based internet interventions in reduced health disparities, and also you'll be doing mental health and design in the digital user world user experience, and also learning about evidence-based principles of multimedia learning for product design. And the benefit of us being in Silicon Valley is that there are a lot of opportunities that you could do for internships that we offer. So doing the VA mobile app, our e-clinic, as well as our tech and research labs. And then also you'll have an opportunity, if you want to seek out, outside resources here within the Bay Area, which is sort of also the benefit. And since we also have a lot of faculty members that have an interest in the tech space, you could definitely connect with them and, sort of hope to gain more experience as when you decide, when you are graduating with the degree and sort of what to do and sort of your next steps in your career. All right, and then here are some certificates. So Concept is the continuing and professional studies branch of the university. This is free to all students, and I really highly recommend you supplement your degree and your courses with doing Concept courses, because this will also give you a lot more knowledge, some certificates in the technology and mental health space and sort of help you with your career. And you know, maybe it has courses that you might be interested in. And that's where the Foundations of Digital Mental Health certificate also comes into play. And then here we have the forensic psychology. These are the two courses you'll be taking, Introduction to Forensic Psychology and Assessing and Managing Risks. And this, I also highly recommend the concept courses, because there are a lot of classes you could also supplement if you are, you know, wanting to do something in a non-licensing role in the legal system, and then also anything in forensics, or even potentially being working with children and stuff like that. So there is a variety of things you could do with this degree. Right, next slide. And this is sort of, again, our concept courses. So some of them are assessment of competence to stand trial, report writing for forensic evaluation. So these are definitely something you should consider doing if you are a student. It is free, like I said, and it's something that, you know, will definitely help you when you are, you know, depending on what concentration you're pursuing, and to sort of help you supplement with these also concept courses. All right, and then Dr. Arnaud, you can continue. Thank you.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself and I shifted the slide. I do want to make sure it's clear that the MS program is not a clinical program. It prepares you for clinical work, but you don't do any clinical training during the course of it. So you would not come out as somebody who could shift into easily a therapist position in a forensic or correctional setting, but you would be somebody who would have knowledge to perhaps work in those settings, you know, in other capacities. So it's a great program, but it does not lead to licensure at a master's level for mental health work. There was a question earlier in the chat about the difference between PsyD, PhD, and forensics, and I'll get to that in just a moment when I start talking about the areas of emphasis. Let me just talk more generally about the PhD program. It's designed as a 5-year program. Approximately half to maybe a little less than half of our students actually complete it in 6 years. And you'll see when I show you how the courses work, where that extra year might come in. We have a model that we refer to as practitioner scientist, and that's a little bit different than the typical PhD program. The typical PhD program is a scientist practitioner, the words are flipped, or scholar practitioner. And the reason for that is that there is an emphasis in most traditional PhD programs on research, versus in PsyD programs on being a practitioner. So the PhD program here has shifted it around. Instead of being practitioner scholar, as most PsyD programs are, or scientist practitioner, as most PhD programs are, this is practitioner scientist, which is really trying to indicate that we have a balance of clinical training and research training. And what that means is this is a program in which you're spending a lot of time learning about both research and clinical training. It is a commitment in terms of time as well as in terms of tuition, because you are really emphasizing both topics. If you're thinking about a PhD program, one of the things we look for are, do you have some clinical work, and do you have also some research experience? We also might be looking at what kind of populations you worked with, not so much because we think, oh, you can only be here if you have experience with this specific population, but for example, whether it's a fit. So for example, if you said, I have tons of experience working with children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and that's what I want to do research in, and that's who I want to work with. We don't actually have a track for that. We don't have faculty for whom that's a specialty. And so that may not necessarily be a good fit for this PhD program. If you're more open to working with a variety of populations, and that's the only population you've had experience with so far is people diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, then you may be a good fit. So there's not one right thing to say in your application. We bring this up simply to say, think about whether the program is a good fit for you, because you want to go to a program that meets your interests and needs. We also, besides looking for people who are interested in both research and clinical training, we value applicants who are very committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those values are important here. They're woven through all of the training that we do. And that's an important piece of what we're looking for. Also, students with a wide variety of clinical interests are a good match because we can't be guaranteed you'll get any one specific clinical training opportunity or research opportunity. So although you can probably get pretty close to what you want, you don't come in here knowing you're going to work with a particular faculty member or getting a particular practicum placement. So the more open you can be to lots of opportunities, the better. And in general, I think that's a good way to be in this field anyway. In terms of research and clinical training, you would work with a faculty member for generally 3 years on research, 2 years as a member of their research group. You would enter into that research group at the end of the first year of your training. There's a lab match process where you apply to work in certain labs and they interview and you each rank each other and so forth. We have faculty who are very active in terms of producing scholarship and research in a variety of different areas of psychology. And you get mentoring in how to conduct research. And then you conduct your own dissertation, and also students are required to present or publish to disseminate their research before graduation. Clinical training, we have didactic coursework, and also we have didactic coursework for research as well. We have our own clinic called the Gronowski Center, and that the students begin there in the summer of their first year. And this is true for both students who are transferring in with an MS and students who have started here for their first year of their PhD program. And then after the first year of training, clinical training in the Gronowski Center, that's our in-house training clinic, we also have students work in external practica for their third year and their fourth year of training. And there's a process called BAPIC, which it stands for the Bay Area Practicum Information Collaborative or Collective, I think. We have 9 or 10 doctoral programs in this area that participate, and more than 100 agencies in the area who offer a variety of different kinds of training. And students apply to those places, interview, and then there's a computer match. And that's how you get your external placements. And that relates to the question that, I'm not sure if I'm going to say this name correctly, Cheyenne asked about the area of emphasis and the training you get there. The student, you cannot come here saying, I know I will definitely get a forensic program. You have to apply to be in both the forensic area of emphasis and a forensic training site. But the advantage in the Bay Area is there's a huge number of clinical training sites. As I said, there's over 100. And so pretty much any clinical interest you have, you can find a training site that focuses on that area of interest. In terms of the area of emphasis, having any forensic classes, the PsyD program here does not have an area of emphasis or forensic classes. So if you're interested in forensics, you would need to be in the PhD program. Now, before this, I was up at a different university in Oregon. I actually started the forensic track there. It was a PsyD program. And the training was comparable. The training was comparable in terms of getting the forensic classes as well as the forensic training in a correctional site. So I can't say you should go to a PhD program to get forensic training, because I got great forensic training in the PsyD program, and we did a lot for the students who entered into that track. I can say, though, that if you're interested in forensics at PAU, the PhD program is a better fit. There's a note here about professional advising, and what that refers to is Dr. Ledak and Dr. Evans, who assist with the practicum placements, as well as when you're ready to apply for that capstone experience of internship, each student is assigned to a faculty internship advisor who meets with the student and provides individualized mentoring for the internship application process. So there's a tremendous amount of clinical training mentoring that happens in the program. Here is the curriculum of the PhD program. I'm just going to come down here toward the chat. So you can see there are 6 boxes on here, even though it says 5-year curriculum, and you'll see why that's the case. In the first year, all students in the PhD program are completing didactic coursework. That coursework is equivalent to the 2 years in the MS program. So the students who are in the MS program over the course of 2 years complete what students in the PhD program complete in 1 year. Toward the end of the first year, they apply for research labs and they begin their clinical training in summer. And the same thing is true for the MS program. The students in their second year of the MS program who are transferring into the PhD program will also apply for research labs at the same time in the PhD program. That clinical training that they start in the summer of their first year continues on through the second year. So you do a full year of training at the community training clinic. We have the Gronowski Center. Then the research lab training begins formally in the second year. And instead of having more of the foundational psychology classes as you have in the first year, it's more assessment, psychological assessment, and therapy-focused courses in the second year. In the third year, the students then participate in training at external clinical training placements. We have a lot of hospital placements, forensic, community counseling, college counseling centers, and so forth in the area. There are still some didactic courses that students are taking. At that point, it is primarily elective courses. So the courses that you choose to take for maybe a particular area of emphasis. When you complete your oral competency exam in the third year, you earn your MS in clinical psychology. And that is different from the MS you get in the MS program. The MS in the MS program is a master's in psychology, not in clinical psychology. In your fourth year, you're completing and working towards defending your dissertation. You're no longer in classes. There is, again, an external practicum placement, and you're in the process of applying for internship. Students match with internships in the February of the fourth year. And in the fifth year, they complete the 12-month internship. We require that students complete an APA accredited internship because it's far better for career, as I said, for the PhD program, for career and for licensure. If they haven't finished their dissertation in the fourth year, they finish it while they're in internship and then graduate. And before I get to that final box, I'll say, if you students are taking a 6th year, what typically happens is year 3 and year 4 become year 3, 4, and 5. Students are taking longer to produce research. Maybe they're in a research program or they want to do some presentations or publications. They're working on their dissertation proposal for a longer time than they had anticipated, or they want to get specialized clinical training and they'd like to take an extra year to do that. It can also be because they have a family or because they've decided they want to work part-time. But this is a full year program and we don't suddenly reduce people to part-time. We do require that people are here full-time. Sometimes the students who are doing that extra year might be, for example, in neuropsych or in forensics, because those are more intensive areas that have some slightly more specialized clinical training. And then in most states in the country, and I can't speak for Canada or other jurisdictions, but in most states in the country, it is also required once you graduate that you gain additional hours for licensure. So, for example, California requires that people who are applying for licensure here have 1,500 hours a minimum on an internship that's done pre-graduation, and 1,500 or so hours. They require a total of 3,000 hours. And some of that will be 1,000 to 1,500 that happens after graduation. And then there's also licensing exams, etc. So that last box is really about what happens for licensure. The first 5 boxes are what happens before graduation. Here's an example of some research labs. I love looking at this because I think I could be happy working in pretty much any of these research labs. There's just so much fascinating research that's going on here. So if you are interested in applying to this program, I do recommend that you spend time looking at the research labs that are available, the descriptions available on the website, because we will look in your application to see if you can identify an area of interest, and also a faculty member of interest. Some of you have written in the chat about, can I apply to the PsyD program and the PhD program? And that's relatively frequent because, they're not completely separate areas of interest, obviously. A doctorate in psychology requires learning a lot of the same things, whether it's a PsyD or a PhD. But one thing that does happen sometimes is applicants will focus on only one program or the other. So when their application comes to us in the PhD program, we hear who they would be interested in working with in the PsyD program rather than who they're interested in working with in the PhD program. And that's not helpful to us because we can't tell then whether or not they're a good fit for the PhD program. So my recommendation is if you are applying to both programs, that's again perfectly fine, but do write 2 separate essays that the 2 separate programs can review, because that helps us a lot in understanding how you would fit into each of those programs. As I mentioned, we have 7 areas of emphasis. Students are not required to be in an area of emphasis. I would say probably half of our students are generalists. And let's see, we have the pediatric behavioral health care, diversity and community mental health, forensic psychology, LGBTQ plus psychology, neuropsychology, psychology of trauma, and health psychology. Each of these involves classes, doing a dissertation in the area, and in most cases doing practicum training in the area. And we have practicum placements that are available for each of these. Students who are interested in generalist can still, in most cases, take courses that are offered in these areas of emphasis. The exception to that is if you're not in the neuropsych area of emphasis, you can't take the neuropsych class, for example, but anyone can take the trauma classes, anyone can take the diversity and community mental health classes, and we definitely encourage that. I think the same thing is true for health psychology. It's also important to think about whether or not you would be admitted right into a track. At my prior university, we would admit students right into a track. That's not the case here. Students come here, they learn about the tracks, we offer webinars, we offer brown bag seminars with the faculty who are leading the different labs. And then students make a decision about what they're interested in and apply to the labs at the beginning of their second year, I believe. And then also apply to the labs at the end of the first year, apply to the areas of emphasis at the beginning of the second year. With respect to the question of whether you can be in one or more, in two or more areas of emphasis, it depends on the area of emphasis. So for example, you can imagine that you would want to be perhaps in diversity and community mental health and forensic, because unfortunately we have disproportionate minority representation in forensic and correctional systems. You might want to be in trauma and health, or you can see where a variety of these would mix well. The answer to this depends on whether you can take all the classes. There's only 18 units of electives that you can take, and you have to make sure that you would be able to take the electives for both classes, and you may have to do a practicum for each and a dissertation for each. So it's better to talk to the area of emphasis directors about whether that's a viable way to go. Some of the areas of emphasis really require only that you complete coursework. And it's in that case, it may be much easier to try to do 2 areas of emphasis at one time. As somebody who used to direct a forensic area of emphasis, I often had a number of students in neuropsych who would want to also be in forensic because they'd say, I want to do assessment of clients, of neuropsych clients for civil court cases. And so that's why I want to be in forensics. And what I would say in that case is you should be in the neuropsych area of emphasis because you can be trained in doing forensics later. States often provide certification programs for forensics. It is very difficult to train later to be a neuropsychologist. So think about which should be the primary area of training that you get. Let's see. One other thing that's really neat about the Gronowski Center that we have is, besides it being community-based and providing sliding scale fees for people in the community, we also have 2 specialty clinics and 1 research clinic. The 2 specialty clinics are first the Sexual and Gender Identities Clinic that treats individuals who identify as sexual or gender minorities. And that's a really thriving clinic. We now have 2 teams for that clinic because we had so many clients coming that we had a long wait list. We also have La Clínica Latina, which is a clinic that is focused on individuals who are Spanish speaking and or bicultural, and our Spanish speaking students can train in that clinic. And then there's the early intervention clinic. That's through Matthew Cordova, Dr. Matthew Cordova, who is the director of the health area of emphasis. His research focuses on working with children and families who have experienced trauma. And there is a research protocol that is offered where individuals can receive clinical intervention, and they collect research data for that. And some students work in that clinic and then also conduct their dissertations using those data. As I mentioned earlier, we have a strong commitment to diversity values at this university. We have a number of student groups to get dedicated to diverse identities. We have a number of our faculty who do a lot of research that incorporates identity characteristics in the research. And we have had a lot of training here for faculty on decolonizing and decentering whiteness in our curricula. So in fact, this year's first year cohort, we have over 60% of the students identify as a race or ethnicity other than white. So we have a tremendous, and that's not saying that race and ethnicity are by any means the only identities we're looking at. We have students with a lot of diverse identities in terms of age, ability, race, ethnicity, sexual and gender identities, etc. We have lots of really exceptional faculty who produce a lot of research. You can see that on the website, and given that we don't have a whole lot of time, I'm not going to go into that in much depth. But also to say that our students are also exceptional. They produce a variety of different kinds of research. They've won awards. We have students who've received minority fellowships from APA. So we just have a really thriving group of students here at the university. PhD graduates do virtually anything that someone with a doctorate in psychology can do. They work in every setting imaginable: medical settings, state hospitals, military, integrative healthcare, corrections, private practice, community mental health, just everything, college counseling, etc. We also have some who choose to go into research and academics. And I'm going to stop there. I do want to mention before I end also that when you're looking at schools, take a look at the information that's required to be on the website by APA. That will tell you how well students match at APA accredited internships, as well as the licensure rates. Those rates are quite high for both the PsyD and the PhD program, but you may not end up here, and it's important for you to look at the outcomes of the other schools you're applying to. So I'm going to turn this back to Robin now.
All right, so to quickly go over the admissions requirements, there is a lot more information on our website. So here for both our PhD and our MS program, they both have the same requirements, and it's all to be submitted through PsyCast, which is a centralized application system. And so everything will be uploaded there. Nothing will be sent to Palo Alto University or given to us. So for the PhD and the MS, what is required are prerequisites. However, for the PhD program, the prerequisites are required before you start your courses. And students might maybe have similar courses that might be compared to the prerequisites. And if that's the case, please reach out to me. I could definitely send you to the right resource to make sure that maybe you have a similar prerequisite and you've completed them. And also for the MS, the prerequisites are only required if you are not a psychology major. So if you majored in psychology in your undergraduate, then you don't have to take them. And then we also require a resume or a CV for both. And then we also require a statement of purpose, which you could find it more in detail on PsyCast. It should give you the prompt. And then also we require letters of recommendation, at least three, and pretty much we're asking from any type of professional or academic recommenders, anyone that's seen you in a more formal setting, supervisors, managers, volunteer coordinators. And we do ask, please do not use recommenders that are your friends, your family, your personal therapist. Those will not be accepted. And we also ask for all official transcripts from all colleges and universities you have attended. And that will also prompt you on SciCast, the application portal, to submit them through there. So you will not send anything to Palo Alto University. And also the GRE is not required for both of these programs this year. All right, and then we'll go to the next slide. Okay, and then here I just want to elaborate on the timeline. So applications are now open for all our programs, and so you can apply now until the deadline. So the application review begins November 1st. So we always encourage students to apply by the application review because sometimes there is delays in sending your transcripts, your recommenders, and you might maybe be missing something in your application. So that's why we ask students to aim for it. However, the deadline is January 7th. So you definitely could apply up until January 7th and submit your application. However, it doesn't mean you need to have all your recommenders and transcripts submitted by then. So you have until January 21st to submit all your materials. And so if you don't submit by January 21st, it just means we can't guarantee interview slots will not be filled up by then. And after that, we'll have typically an interview weekend, which take place on a Friday and Saturday. And they really are very fun. You get to meet faculty members, see presentations, also talk to current students. And we typically hold them between end of January to March. And then we also invite students in-person event for our Admitted Students Day. We also have virtual events as well for that. And that's typically, you get to meet us, we get to meet you and sort of have that experience in person. And if you do decide to attend our school, you will have to complete an enrollment confirmation by April 15th. And so one thing to keep in mind is the MS in psychology is on a rolling basis. So once you apply and everything is verified, then your application will go into review. And if you're invited to the next steps, you'll be invited. And then for the PhD program, it's not rolling admissions. So please keep that in mind. All right. And then here, some students might have questions about certain aspects of the application in SciCast, and a really useful resource is our YouTube video on our deep dives. And those will actually go through every single part of those requirements and tell you sort of how to fill out those questions. However, here is my email. We could always talk about it and I could clarify or help you in any SciCast related questions or even admissions requirements. And I could also connect you with the current student as well. So please feel free to reach out to me. And then, yeah, so we have about 10 minutes or so for questions. I know that someone had a question earlier about research labs and if research labs are accepting, each research lab that we have listed is accepting students every single year, and if students get their top choice research lab typically.
Sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute. I'm on a different system today. The question about research labs. So what will happen is, as I said, there are brown bag seminars for each of the research labs, and those are recorded so that students can hear about what the different focuses of the research labs are. In addition, the students put on something called a research lab fair, where there are no faculty present. There are only students who are in those labs, and that gives the new students a chance to ask them questions about what it's really like to work in the lab. And then after that, students will apply to work in, typically they apply to 3 to 5 labs, and then they interview. And there's no guarantee that you will be admitted to work in the lab that you're most interested in. Most students actually do get one of their top 3 choices, but we can't guarantee that just because there's a certain number of students and a certain number of faculty, and If we have 20 students all interested in the same lab, one faculty member can't take that many students in. So we do have to equalize the numbers across faculty. But that being said, when the process is over, we typically only have a few students left that need matching, and all of those students are matched within a few days by, again, looking at the openings and interviewing and so forth. So no guarantee, but most students do end up in labs that they're quite interested in, if not all students. We also do have a few external labs with some faculty who are at different universities and are working on very specific projects that some of our students can apply to as well.
Thank you. And I saw another question. So Palo Alto University, either if you're applying to the PhD or the PsyD, it does run a little bit differently. So you're not applying directly to a faculty member, you're applying to the university itself. So we are a little bit different in that aspect, because I know I get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
And then if anyone else has any questions, you could just write it in the chat, and then, or maybe someone could raise their hand as well too, if they want to sort of unmute themselves and ask any questions that they may have.
I've been trying to look through the chat to see if there were any questions that weren't answered, but if I've missed some, please, somebody let me know.
Do we have to reach out to potential supervisors before applying? No. So like I said, you don't have to reach out to them. Typically, if you do try to reach out to them, they'll redirect you to admissions, and then so you end up most likely connecting with me. So no, you'll be applying to the university beforehand. But it is really important to, do look at those research labs, look at the faculty members that you are interested in potentially connecting with, and seeing if you do have any interest within those faculty members. And so I think that's really important, either if you are applying for the PhD or the PsyD, the fact that we have two programs, it is important to see if, your interests somewhat line up and have something similar, because that is something you have to express in your personal statement. If you are interested in certain faculty members and what led you to your interest in our university and in a PhD in clinical psychology. We don't have the prerequisites for the MS yet. Can I apply for the MS and complete the prerequisites in a community college? Yes. So for the prerequisites, for both programs, you don't have to have them finished by the time you apply. You could definitely have them either in progress or even do them later, during the spring or even latest this summer. So we sort of reach out to you and tell you you're missing those and you're conditionally admitted, and then you'll just have to complete them, either at a community college. You could also do them at any accredited university or even online. A lot of students use UC Berkeley Extension, which is really popular, as well as, even Coursera and stuff. So you could always reach out to me and I can confirm if you're wondering about a school. Yes, you can do prerequisites online. All right, and we have about 5 more minutes. So if anyone else has any more questions that you could ask Dr. Arnaud, especially since she is here and she could answer any questions you might have about, research or.
There was a question much earlier in the chat about, can you teach with a PsyD? And that's an interesting question because it really depends on where you want to teach. I think if you want to teach, say, at a community college, the PsyD versus the PhD really doesn't matter. In fact, they will also have master's level people teaching in community college. If you want to be in a tenure track position where you're doing a lot of research, which is typical for PhD programs, most typically a PhD is a better fit for your own degree, because most PsyD programs will not prepare you with as much research training to be working at a doctoral level tenure track position in a PhD program. It really just depends on how productive you are in terms of research if you're looking for a traditional academic position. But you certainly can teach in other places with a PsyD. And if you're a PsyD who has a fair amount of research, you could probably get hired into a PhD program as well. It's really just the difference in emphasis will come out at the time of applying to a very research heavy tenure track kind of academic program.
Yes, and I believe too in the PhD program we also have what is it, like associate professors that did attend PAU. I think Dr. Charlotte Beard, she actually went to PAU and now she's actually a professor, associate professor.
But she went to the PhD program. She wasn't a PsyD.
Right.
Yeah.
She went to the PhD program.
Yeah. So it depends. Like you can teach, but would you get hired into a tenure track position? Maybe not. So that's why I say if you want to teach a course here or there, absolutely, a PsyD is a great way to go because you're going to be very clinically knowledgeable. If you want a tenure track research heavy position, you probably want the PhD. Mentioned if they're sorry, I'm just looking at Theo's question here. If you're primarily interested in counseling, getting a doctorate, actually, can you clarify? Yeah, no, what I mean is that a lot of times, if what you want to do is therapy and only therapy, most of those jobs tend to be master's level jobs, and the salaries will be priced at master's level clinician salaries. So psychologists in those kinds of agencies tend to move more into management positions and supervision positions. And if that's not what you're interested in, if you're not interested in administration, then I would start with getting a master's degree and getting the clinical work and doing a lot of therapy that way. You might find later, hey, I actually do think I want to do more research or administration or psychological testing. And it won't hurt you to have had that master's degree and that clinical experience before you go to a doctoral program. That's all I was saying. If what you think you want to do for your career, and some people really love it, they love doing therapy and that's what they want to do, I would think twice before getting a PhD because a PhD is not necessary for that. That's all I was saying.
Right, and then also,
Amanda, I'm sorry, I think I just interrupted you, Robin. The MS does not lead to so the MS program is not a clinical program. It does not lead to a degree that will allow you to be licensed as a therapist, this MS program. The MA in counseling does in this university, but not the MS. The students in the PhD program get an MS in clinical psychology along the way to getting their PhD, which is different from an MS in psychology, which is what the MS program gets. Because remember, it's not a clinical program. There's no clinical practicum that you do in that program. And the MS in clinical psychology still is not a licensable degree in most states. So if you want to practice at a master's level, it doesn't make sense to come into this program for an MS degree. It does make sense to go into the MA program for a counseling degree. And it may make sense once we have a social work program to get a social work master's. I know that sounds silly because you think, well, why can't I be a therapist if I have an MS in clinical psychology? It's just the way the psychology world works. We're not the same as the counseling or the social work world, where you can get a license at a master's level.
all right, and then also the MA open house will also be after this, so it is at 11. So if you did have questions, and then the PsyD will be at 12. So I do see that the time is 10:59. I just want to say that there's my email. Please reach out to me to any questions we didn't get to today. And also the recording, you could reach out to me. I could send it to you, but it will also be on our YouTube very soon. And then we'll also have the one from last month as well. So yeah, I just want to say thank you everyone for attending the MS and PhD open house. And please feel free to reach out to me for any questions that you may have. And I want to thank Sadie and Sasha for being here and being our current students and being awesome and answering chat questions. And also Dr. Arnaud for taking the time to present to you this really important information and answering questions. So thank you so much for being here. And everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your Saturday.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck with your decision making.
Thank you.